statement, and as was mentioned at the exit, you can also grab your copy. You will see this paper copy, but let me read also out most important paragraphs by leaving more time, therefore more time than for questions and answers. So I will just cover the major points. These were the first post-conflict general elections solely organized by the Liberian institution. A largely peaceful and vibrant campaign in which fundamental freedoms were mostly respected was marred by and contradictory. Campaign finance regulations are overall in line with international standards, but their lack of enforcement failed to ensure complete transparency. Direct EU-EUM observation and information from stakeholders showed election and also very hard for the voters. But given these circumstances, I think it was really mentionable. The National Election Commission, NEC, missed the opportunity to address the stakeholders' concerns early enough with a view to increase public confidence through more effective and comprehensive communication and information sharing. And also newly introduced biometric voter registration contributed to the identification of multiple and suspect records in the voter registration's role. However, technical problems during registration and systematic procedural shortcomings weakened the stakeholders' confidence in its accuracy. The fact that NEC shared the final copies of the final registration roll with the electoral contestants so close to the election day further undermined the stakeholders' trust in the registration data. Freedom of expression and the press are respected in Liberia. Political patronage, low salaries, and the lack of diversified funding streams result in self-censorship, which is the main issue in the media landscape. Messages transmitted to the public. Despite some minor incident, most journalists feel free to cover the elections. Absence of regulatory framework for data protection and cybersecurity facilities, a fertile ground for instances of cyberbullying, usage of inflammatory language and incitement messages, discrediting of electoral contestants and saping voters' trust in the electoral process. On a positive note, 3 main fact-checking initiatives performed verification and scrutiny of political and electoral content in a timely manner, thus helping voters to make a better informed choice. On the election day, our observers reported from 417 polling places in rural and urban areas in 14 out of the 15 counties of the country. And they assessed that the election day is generally calm, peaceful, and well conducted by the NEC, with only isolated cases of incidents, mostly as a result of voters' frustration due to the high turnout, combined with slow processing of polling or late opening in some polling places, which was also observed by the EU-EUM. Due to logistical difficulties which hampered the distribution of electoral materials, several voting precincts in the south did not open and the voting was postponed to the following days. While the conduct of voting was generally evaluated as well organized and smooth, the counting phase was addressed by EU observers less positively due to omission of incomplete implementation of several important procedural steps intended to ensure integrity of the count. These shortcomings were mainly attributed to insufficient understanding or non-adherence of the established procedures by the polling personnel. It is also important to note that the result tabulation is still underway, and the EU-EUM will remain in the field to observe this process until the end. Our observers are currently following the process at the county tallying centers across the country. And we have observed some delays in start of the tallying process, mainly due to still ongoing arrival of result forms from the voting precincts, which require time, as well as some technical problems. Up until now, the process is assessed mainly positively as transparent and orderly by our observers. And we will, as I said, will continue to observe the process until it is finalized. We'll also follow the handling of complaints and appeals. And after the completion of the process, the EU Election Observation Mission will present to the authorities and to the public a final report with recommendations on how to improve future elections. Thank you very much for your attention. And before we open the questions, I will pass the floor to the head of the delegation of the members of the European Parliament, my dear friend, Mr. Leopoldo López Gil.
Thank you, Andrea. Good afternoon all, distinguished friends. My name is Leopoldo López Gil, I'm a member of the European Parliament. It is my pleasure to address you today on behalf of our parliamentary delegation. We are 7 members of the European Parliament, representing a large political spectrum and coming from 6 different countries of the European Union. First of all, we wish to express our gratitude to the Liberian authorities for having invited us to observe. We all feel honored to have been present during the first fully Liberian-owned general election, especially as Liberia is a very important EU partner. This is a 3rd time that the EU Election Observation Mission has been deployed to your country. Our presence underlines the EU's respect for 20 years of enduring peace in Liberia and for the country's commitment and progress to democratic consolidation. First and foremost, I want to express our full endorsement of the findings presented today by my colleague, the Chief Observer, Mr. Andreas Schroeder. I sincerely thank him for his tremendous work and the excellent cooperation with him and the great team. During the past few days, we've been here, we met with the National Election Commission, the NEC, with candidates, with religious leaders, with civil society organizations, and media representatives. We were also honored to meet with the 2011 Nobel Prize for Peace laureates, the President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and Ms. Lima Goben. The Chief Observer has already given a detailed overview of the mission's preliminary findings, and I therefore wish to focus on these issues that we, as elected politicians, consider crucial. The electoral campaign was largely peaceful, even though during the 2 weeks in the running up of the polls, there were some isolated incidents of violence, which regretfully led to the loss of lives. Moreover, according to our interlocutors, the exercise of the freedoms of expression, association, and assembly was mostly respected. In the course of our meetings, we got the impression that the NEC sought and ran a successful election under the current legal framework, which is fragmented, and its provisions are therefore at times challenging to apply. NEC also seems to have made an effort to be transparent, using social media platforms and other communication tools. But still, our interlocutors criticized its information sharing, especially regarding the tallying process. There were also questions about the preparedness of the NEC to manage the election day procedures, which thankfully, as I will mention later, proved to be largely unfounded. Positively, we were informed that the voter and candidate registration process were largely inclusive, with the exception of people with disabilities. Concerning women, female candidates constitute just 15% of all registered candidates. The percentage it's only half of the 30% gender quota that the political parties themselves had committed to. Democratic competition should always take place on a level playing field. All candidates should have had equal access to state institutions, resources, and the media. We are therefore concerned that there were misuse of state resources and public office, such as state officials campaigning in favor of the ruling party. In addition, we were informed that the state TV broadcaster displayed bias in favor of the party in power. The reported monetization of the campaign, as described by our interlocutors, combined with impunity of those who do not respect the campaign finance rules, also had a negative impact on the level playing field. Concerning the electoral dispute resolution, local actors with whom we spoke expressed doubts concerning the independence of the judiciary. Turning to election day, one European Parliament team observed in Monrovia, other in Bomi County, and the third one in Makibi County. The atmosphere on the election day was mostly peaceful, and the vast majority of the polling centers in which we observed it was well organized and transparent. But nevertheless, on the basis of our observation, promises of facilitating the voting of people with disabilities were not fulfilled. I would like to extend our sincere thanks and congratulations to the staff of the polling places. Despite the logistical challenges they face, such as lack of sufficient light during the counting, they did their best to ensure that the proceedings ran smoothly as possible, and mostly did. But we also observed that the election day procedures have been relatively slow. Above all, I would like to express our admiration for the civic spirit and enthusiasm shown by the people of Liberia, who went to vote in such large numbers. I would now like to refer to the post-electoral period. First of all, as democratically elected politicians, my colleagues, the parliamentarians, and I urge all political leaders to wait calmly and patiently for the announcement of the final results, to accept the election outcome, and to do the utmost in order to ensure that the supporters refrain from violent acts. Moreover, it is crucial that the counting and tallying continue to be done in a transparent and traceable manner to strengthen the confidence in this step. Any dispute regarding the electoral process should be addressed peacefully according to the established legal procedures. It is also crucial that the judiciary shall perform its constitutional duties in an independent and impartial manner. Finally, I would like to reaffirm that the EU, as a key partner of this country, will continue supporting Liberia and its people. The European Parliament in particular is committed to enhancing its cooperation for the next government and parliament in the months and years to come. We believe that this cooperation should include accompanying the process of implementation of the European Union mission recommendations. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chief Observer and Head of European Parliament Delegation. I want to give the floor now to the journalists who are here. My colleague Jackson is somewhere with a microphone. Please tell us your name and the media you are working for, and give us a question.
In fact, you have to come here. Good afternoon. My name is Moses Gazo. I work for the BBC. Two inquiries. You spoke about the level playing field in the election financing. Would you mind telling us, because there are two provisions, you can't overspend, you can't take outside money. Which one you think was violated? My second concerns have to do with you monitoring elections. Most time in African elections, the aftermath is what matters most. We have gone very peaceful in casting the ballot and going through campaign. But what are you doing in terms of engaging with stakeholders, political parties, and government to make sure that the post-elections activities will be peaceful and as expected? Thank you.
First of all, thank you for the questions and for coming. Maybe before answering your question directly, to say an election observation mission of the European Union is not only looking on the election day only. It means that we are, and that's why I stressed also that we are here taking it very serious, and since the end of August, having more than 10 people working here as experts and having more than 20 people being in the counties around, seeing and hearing with the ears and eyes how the situation is, meeting all the stakeholders. So our impression is collecting all this information and putting it into a report. And what we got reported is that here in the country, also for the electoral campaigning, there was not level playing field, let's say, established in the sense of that not everybody had the same access to resources, or that incumbents had also overused public facilities, houses, cars, also for their electoral campaigns, which, let's say, is at the end hampering level playing field, as one example. Secondly, also what we see is that would be also one of the recommendations for the future is to have on the financing of campaigns, law established which is ensuring more transparency and also more respecting ceilings and other issues, but also making sure that everybody respects this, because it does not help only if you have limits, it also is necessary to look after this. Positively, but also we have to say, for example, that here, like you could see in Monrovia, that is moving away all the posters. Also on the days before on the posters, you also saw that level playing field did not completely exist. But for the voting days, there was no poster visible anywhere. So there was, everybody respected to this silence of campaign. And I think this is also positively to be said. And secondly, as I said, we observed before, we observed the election itself, which is of course the high day of the will of the Liberian people, and they took the chance, they all went there to cast their vote, and then there is the situation after. And of course for the situation after, we have to be a little bit more patient. Us as observers, you as journalists, and especially those which run for positions, have to be also more patient and wait until the results come in. And then anyway, politics starts to make a lot of remarks on anything. And this is very important, because it is at the end afterwards also important that the will is also reflected in the composition of the parliament, the senate, and in the president's office. So therefore, because you asked me what we will do to ensure in the aftermath, we will not leave after this press conference. We will have our people still be in the country. Our mission still stays here until the telling process is finished, and also observing the telling process, but also afterwards observing eventually all the complaints and files in front of court or wherever in a democracy these questions have to be dealt with. And we stay, so let's say, until the end. And even more, we will come back 1-2 months after the election to present our final report. And in 2 to 3 years, also we will come back again, because we will provide also the Liberia, the whole public, the politics, the media and everybody with a list of recommendations, and we will come back also to discuss the implementation and the development of the country in this time. So you see, we take it extremely serious. And maybe let me also use your questions. I know others also have questions, but I think it's also the moment that we have to also, I want to thank the team, which is working here under the conditions, and also getting to know how life in Liberia is. And honestly, there is no European which is experienced 6 weeks of continuous heavy rains, for example. And this, of course, has an impact on the life of the people. I also want to thank the long-term and short-term observers which have been here in the last weeks and doing this job. And also I want to mention, I think it's very good that the European Union and the European taxpayers are providing us with the possibility to make this mission, because at the end, especially in global times like we have now, there are two ways to make decisions. The one is to fight each other, and the other one is to vote and take a decision of the majority. And therefore, I'm still convinced, even if the world sometimes is very negative, democracy is the better way, and therefore we have to support wherever it is possible.
Good afternoon. All right, so my name is Prince Mova, and I report for Prime FM in Monrovia and focus on Liberia TV from the state. My concern is maintaining peace after election, post-election era in Africa is concerned. Is what during the campaign, political parties claimed first round victory. And after the elections, we've seen that the major opposition party, the Unity Party, about an hour ago had a press conference informing their supporters in Liberia that what is available to them, they won the election. And if the NEC, announces anything other also of what they have in their possession, they're not going to accept that. How does the EU observation mission see that? That's my question.
First of all, I have to say, our mission is strictly neutral. So in the forefront, we try to meet all the candidates and all political stakeholders. This is very important. But secondly, I would also say, all these kind of questions can be only answered until NEC has finished its work. And until now, we see them continuing their work. They do their job, and we have to wait until the result are on the table to make any answer on your further questions on this.
Good afternoon. My name is Emmanuel Jiragakaswa, and I report for the Independent newspaper. There were 5,890 polling places on Tuesday, October 10th. Your observer mission covers 414 counties. So I will give you the opportunity to grade yourself. Was the observation mission successful given the ratio of polling places you covered? And due to that question, you covered 14 out of 15 counties. The other counties you did not mention. You care to tell us that county you were able to cover and why for the reason you wasn't able to cover that county? Thank you.
Yeah, well, indeed, we had over 100 observers who were able to observe in 14 out of 15 counties. As you mentioned, we were not able to observe in Grand Cru due to some logistical constraints. But, we were everywhere, and we were working based on a well-established methodology with the statistician, using the statistical data and evidences and direct observations. Our observers were filling in the observation forms and then reporting back. But of course, 100, one could claim that 100 is not sufficient, but using the methodology and cooperating with the domestic observers and other observation groups gives you, in a country like Liberia, quite a good picture of the election day. So I believe this right and good picture of the election day in Liberia is reflected in our preliminary statement, and you will see it in the preliminary statement, a more detailed picture of the election day.
Good afternoon. Am I not audible? Good afternoon. They are asking me to hand over the microphone when I want to ask questions, so I should give it to them before they give it back to me. It makes sense. I am May Asango. I report for Front Page Africa newspaper. And I met the chief observer on LU campus. Yes. Okay, my question. You said you will be here after the tallying and you will come back 3 years after. 3 months or 3 years? 2? Okay, please make it clear because I gave all the different figures. Why will you be coming back? Is it to continue observing? And number 2, to the deputy chief observer, you haven't sing this Pepper Soup song because you say you like Pepper Soup.
Yeah, true. I'm a witness.
For those which did not understand, there is a running joke also going on because the famous Liberian dish is red pepper soup, and it's not only a soup, it's also a song about it. And we will see. What is we do after this serious stuff here? So to clarify the numbers, we came end of August, establishing the core team of 11 experts being based here under the leadership of Deputy Chief Observer. We, beginning of September, we had 20 long-term observers established in the counties, and they had to travel to all the counties. And for election day, we were summed up with diplomatic corps, with the members of parliament, and with short-term observers to this more than 100 observers, only from the European Union. And you have to take also African Union, ECOWAS, the other observers, and most important, the domestic observers of the parties and of the NGOs. But is it we will stay minimum 3 weeks until the elections are finished. And 8 weeks, so 2 months later, we come back to present our report. And between 2 and 3 years, in the midterm, because usually we say 2 years because in country the terms are shorter, but here the term is 6 years, so we are flexible. In the midterm of the political period, we will come again to make a midterm review.
Well,
and then we will eat again red pepper soup.
okay.
Thank you very much. I'm Sylvester Tropley, and I report for Spoon TV. Well, in most African countries, there are usually complaints about electoral fraud, and Liberia is no exception in terms of an African country. And I'm aware that you've been observing the electoral process in Liberia. In terms of integrity, transparency, and credibility, what will you say about the process you have observed so far in Liberia? Thank you.
I will quickly answer and then maybe ask also if Leopoldo also refer on this. So first of all, we have also to say we are observers, and international observer missions following a code of observation. So what we can report is what we observe. We don't comment on rumors and on other things. We don't give our personal opinion or political opinion. We look, we watch, we listen, and then we make a report what we have found. And so far, as we said also in our statements, these elections had been well handled, peacefully, calm, and also trying to assure the transparency which is required. And this is a job which has to be done by the electoral committees, not only the central, but also those people which have to conduct it in the provinces. But it's also a thing which has to be done by the observers and, most important, by the voters themselves. And we were not reporting any major incidents or complaints.
Yes, my name is...
Wait, you'll get also an answer from our distinguished partner.
Just to make sure that people understand the nature of an observation, the methodology used to observe, it's an international standardized methodology. It is not customized to every country. It is standardized. And when we observe, we make it on a basis that has been proven many times and many years in different countries. So we can assure you that when we observe to a very disciplined process and with enough people. So when we finalize the report, or the European Union finalizes the report, it will not be making rules, but rather the rules are the rules that you in your country have set up for the election, not our rules. And the process of observation, it is by an international standard, UN standards, not necessarily European either.
Yes, my name is Gerald Coyne. I write for Front Page Africa. As you stated, the elections were marred by some violence, and we understood that in Lofa, your observation mission was on the ground. Do you mind telling us what did you observe, what really happened? Secondly, the NEC announced, as you said, some parts of